My name is Peggy Lowe, and I'm the rector at St. Albans in Austin, and this year I'm the president of the Episcopal Parish Network. I want to welcome you to this webinar, and we're so glad to Mother Suzanne and Grace Alvin for being willing to share their story and being so excited to share their story today. And thank you all for joining us. We have our board meeting next week, and I was talking to one of our board members this morning, and she was just talking about how parishes really are the future of the church, and how how our relationship with our community is transformative. It transforms us and transforms all those around us. And we really appreciate having webinars like this and other workshops that equips us and connects us to better respond to changes in a changing world. So please put in chat sort of where you're from, and then also as we go on, as the webinar progresses, please feel free to put your questions in there as well. There's going to be a presentation and the panelists will talk, and then they'll address questions. So if you put your questions in there, that'll give them a chance to start weaving it in or start thinking about it. And so without further ado, I want to hand it over to Mother Suzanne.
Thank you, Peggy. Hello, everybody. My name is the Reverend Suzanne Smith, and folks around Grace call me Mother Suzanne. And I am joined with our community missioner, Ed Correct.
Hello, everybody.
In addition, our panelists include Mindy Robertson, who is from a local non-denominational church in Friendswood, Texas, called The Harbor. We also have Leela Hoffman, who is a member of St. John the Baptist Catholic Church, and she is representing the Catholic Daughters of America. In addition, we have Susie Crater, who is a member of Grace Episcopal Church here in Alvin, Texas, and she is in charge of our in-house food pantry. Thank you for joining us, and like Peggy said, if you have questions, just put them in the chat box, and Ed and I and the panelists will do our best to answer them.
Awesome.
We will begin with our PowerPoint presentation. Yes.
The most important one, answered Jesus, is this: Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind and with all your strength. The second is this one: love your neighbor as yourself. There is no commandment greater than these.
Operating on holy experiments. Hold on just a second. Is operating holy experiments. And this blessing box in front of our parish. And this is also where it all began for us. This was Grace's early attempt at feeding our neighbors. It was a frustrating experience because more often than not, it was empty, more so than it was full. But that white blessing box was the extent of our community outreach, a mostly unfilled blessing box. However, it was the beginning of our journey. That empty blessing box was a catalyst that made us start to listen to our community.
So the journey began in July of 2018. As we listened to our community, the common theme we heard was food insecurity. We learned that nearly 52% of Alvin school kids receive Title I free or reduced cost breakfast and lunch. We learned that 60% of Alvin ISD schools are designated as Title I campuses, so there's a huge need for food in the Alvin community. We also learned about an underserved population of about 200 to 250 low-income and homebound seniors. Now, keep in mind that Alvin has a population of about 24,000. And then there's an unserved community of 150 to 200 unhoused neighbors going hungry every day.
So what we learned by listening to our community, by realizing every time we walked by our blessing box, it was empty, we decided we needed to find a bigger box. So through community networking, we found a Houston food bank partner seeking a site for a mobile food pantry. We invited this onto our campus in December of 2019. And on board that truck, and that is the truck, 15,000 pounds of fresh produce and non-perishable items were present. We quickly pivoted during the pandemic to a weekly drive-through mobile food pantry. And it was at this time we saw our peak of over 400 families every week during the pandemic. Currently, we serve about 225 families every Thursday, and we also have an army of volunteers who make 85 home deliveries every week. In addition, we have a blessing box and a blessing refrigerator, which attracts between 60 and 100 visitors every single day.
Fast forward to the present day. Since December of 2019, when we had our first mobile food pantry, we've given away 2.5 million pounds of food. We've served 18,456 families, which converts to about 55,000 people. We've logged nearly 22,000 volunteer hours, and we currently receive 2 tractor trailers from the Houston Food Bank every week. What you see here is our outdoor blessing refrigerator with a warming station that has 2 microwaves that are enclosed and lit at night. They see about 60 to 100 visitors a day. So basically, we've gone from having a little empty blessing box to a 7-day-a-week continuous operation. Most of our office space has been converted to a mini warehouse, which feeds into the blessing box and refrigerator. We also do homebound deliveries to about 85 families every week.
So as you can imagine, Grace is a small church. On most Sundays, we have between 50 and 60 people. So we knew that we could not endeavor to do this work alone. So that is when Ed and I began to pound the pavement. We got to know our neighbors. We collaborated with other churches. We reached out to just about everybody we could imagine, and we began to form relationships with local folks. We have a yearly back to school mobile food pantry and backpack school supply drive. And these are just some of the partners that we partnered with in order to do this big event. Last year, we gave away 800 fully packed backpacks to school kids in Alvin, Texas.
In July of 2022, we went from being a mobile food pantry site to a full-fledged Houston Food Bank pantry partner agency, which actually then enables us to go online to the Houston Food Bank system and order one of our weekly trucks, pick out the actual items that we want to receive, which can include a pallet of milk, it can include pork loins, fish, shrimp, and we blend that into what we give away every Thursday. So we talked about partnering with local organizations, and you can see here doing what we do requires a lot of equipment, refrigerators, freezers, dollies, carts, tables, storage buildings, shade tents, street fans, and much more. And these are the partners that have generously collaborated with us to help us be able to have the infrastructure to do the things we do every week. But among some of the partnerships that we have, one of the special ones started last April with the Catholic Daughters of America at St. John the Baptist Catholic Church right here in Alvin. And from April to December of 2023, they prepared 2,521 meals that we share with our unhoused neighbors. And I'd like for you to take a look at this picture of these meals. There, you can see they're nicely presented. And before we were able to do this, we would hand folks a can of Chef Boyardee ravioli, which then they'd have to empty and microwave. But these meals are beautiful, and they can be served with plasticware. And since so far in 2024, I think we're now approaching 3,000 meals that the Catholic Daughters, and that small little group that you see there is really more like 40 or 50 women. So they're on track to do about 10,800 meals this year. Another partnership that we have in Alvin is with the Jolly Farms Chicken Company. They have given us since July of 22 about almost 13,000 pounds of frozen chicken, which is great because we're able to then offer that to our daily walk-up traffic as a source of protein.
So how does this translate to church growth? I think a lot of us are aware that the days of expecting a mom and a dad and 2.5 kids to walk in on a Sunday morning don't really happen to most of us in church. Yes, it does happen, but that is not what we always see. But what we have seen is that this food ministry has become the primary avenue for attracting new members to Grace. Since 2022, 40 people have been confirmed and received, and every single one of those folks were touched in one way or another by the food ministry. Since 2019, over 75 families and individuals have chosen to call Grace their spiritual home. And before we begin every single mobile food pantry on Thursday morning, we engage in what we call Church in the Street. And I lead this service. It's a Rite 3 service, and it's prayer, it's scripture, and it's a time of blessing of all those who have gathered to volunteer to help with the mobile food pantry that day. This is a picture of what it looks like to worship in the street. This is the street that runs right in front of our church building. If you can notice in the background, the tents, that's where our mobile food pantry takes place. It's in the parking lot. And our church is lucky because we have these beautiful oak trees which shade during the summer and provide a lot of protection from the excruciating Texas heat. So all of our mobile food pantry giveaways are done outside on the grounds of Grace. And what I tell our volunteers is 2 things every single week. We gather because Jesus has asked us to love God and to love our neighbors. And by feeding our neighbors, we are doing both well. In addition, as all of these folks, these volunteers come onto our space, and we have volunteers from all over, what I remind them is that Grace is not Starbucks, Grace is not Walmart or Target. Grace is a sacred space, and what happens on the grounds of Grace is holy work. So during our Church in the Streets, I remind them that they have made their way to a holy space, and what they are doing is indeed sacred. So where we are today, we are a church that is now a thriving, revitalized congregation, lovingly serving our neighbors. And when I arrived in July of 2018, Grace was a church that was withering on the vine, barely hanging on. What I can say now is that this food ministry has grown beyond our wildest imagination, partly because we are a church that says yes. And anything that comes our way, we say yes to. And of course, endeavoring to do enterprise level work like this requires a full-time operation person, and that is our community missioner, Ed.
So where do we want to go from here? Well, we wanted to increase our distribution capacity from 540,000 pounds per year to 1.5 million pounds. And we just say that because that's how we are able to measure, but we continue to see more and more people coming to get food here. So we think that that's something that will happen. During that time, we would like to grow our network of local partner organizations that contribute financially from 10 to 20. We'd like to increase our church membership by 30 individuals or families per year. We've already added our weekly shower ministry, and we've also started our first mini pantry at a HUD low-income housing apartment complex. But last and most importantly, we'd like to help other churches or organizations beyond Alvin establish similar ministries.
So in closing, I'm a huge proponent of the small church. I feel part of my ministry and my priestly ministry.
That's right.
Speak about the power of the small church. Small churches are the backbones of most dioceses. We're kind of populated everywhere. There are a lot of us. And the one thing about small churches is that we are nimble. We're quick on our feet, and we're able to respond at a pace that larger churches just can't. Many small churches have been present in their communities for a long time. Therefore, we can be trusted. I know Grace Alvin has been in Alvin now for 126 years. We are a beacon, which is now again vital to our community. And the other thing that I would like to say, most of us in the small church, we're scrappy. We know we can't do it alone, so we aren't afraid to ask for help. We have to have help. We are great collaborators too. And one of the things that I have noticed about this small church in particular is that the ministry God calls us to, guess what? We do it with our hearts and we do it with our souls. We give everything. Therefore, it is why we believe the small church has the power to transform a community, and we are certainly witness to that. At this time, we would like to share just a quick video which explains more in detail about what we do at Grace every day.
This is what a lot of churches look like on a typical Thursday. But we at Grace do things a little bit differently. We start out really early on Thursday mornings to bless our community.
The blessing box has been here probably for about 5 years. The main thing was that we had a hard time keeping it filled.
So I asked the congregation, let's do something about it. Let's begin to fill the blessing box. But the more we put out, it was still continually empty. So that gave us a clue. Our neighbors, the people of this city, are telling us that they're hungry, and we need to do something about it.
Our small church could never have accomplished this without the help of a lot of participants.
Hi, I'm Ed Whitaker. I go to South Park Baptist Church.
Asbury Methodist in Pasadena.
We stopped and asked Mother Suzanne what
was going on, and she told us what was going on, and we were warm and breathing, and we started working that day, and we've done it every day since.
Little bitty blessing box gave birth to a wonderful ministry, a great big ministry, and we never saw it coming.
So this room here used to be where we kept all the old hymnals and books of common prayer. We needed more freezer space. Well, this area here used to be the choir practice area.
Holy Currencies has affirmed our work, even without having gone through the program to learn how to do food ministry. What we do see is that we're very like-minded in the way that ministry happens. We know that model, it works.
And asking this church, hey, is there a place for us here? Can we help here? And to be welcomed with open arms as another Christ follower has been the biggest blessing in my life and in countless volunteers that we have sent here.
I was come down to the donation box to get some food, and I seen this assembly going on over here and volunteers, and I was like, I told the Lord, I said, you know what, Lord, as much as I eat here, it's the least I can do.
We are only able to bless because we have been blessed first.
And that's so much more than giving someone just the food. We need bread to eat, but we need the bread of life really to survive.
And the great thing that I want to say is we too are a small church struggling to find how do we make meaning in our community. We were brave enough to try something that hadn't been done. And we were also brave enough to listen to our neighbors because we wanted to make a difference in our community.
All right. Well, there you go. That's Grace and our story. And now I'd like to open it up to our panelists. And the first panelist I would just like to call on is one of Grace's very own, Susie Crater. And Susie is an amazing shopper, deal finder, and chef. So, Susie, why don't you tell us why you wanted to do the work of becoming our food pantry manager?
Well, I kind of cut my teeth down the road at Christian Helping Hands years ago, and the need for families to have the staples that they need when they're moving, or there's an economic problem at home, somebody's lost their job. So to be able to get them back started with the right things, pancake mix, any proteins, peanut butter, jelly, and to help them get over the hump. And that's what I like to think that we do too.
Tell everybody what a typical shopping trip is like for you, Susie. What kinds of things are needed in a blessing box, and what kinds of things are requested most?
Eggs most. And that's usually about 300 eggs every other Monday. Between 300 and 400 eggs every other Monday. And our pasta and cereal and oatmeal and pinto beans, rice. We have to replenish those every week. So
what kinds of items do you not put in the blessing box?
We give away everything. In fact, Mother Hubbard's cupboard is kind of bare this week.
So Susie, how has it been working with some of our other partners that have come alongside us?
Right. Everybody is so generous with their time, their money. Whenever we ask for anything, if we're in need, Harbor's there. They come through every time. So, and being in a spot, I just wanted to add, it's a lot kind of like when we have the hurricane crisis every few years, everybody comes together, we get it done.
Thank you, Susie, very much. You alluded to the harbor, and our next panelist that we're going to shine the light on is Mindy Robertson. And Mindy Robertson is also a community missioner and has a heart for helping those who most people don't see or want to see. One of the things I would say that has transformed Grace in many ways is partnering with a larger church. And the Harbor is not only a larger church, but they are extravagantly generous to Grace. Mindy, why don't you come alongside and tell us some of the things that the Harbor does to support Grace and in our ministry of feeding this community?
Man, it's been so awesome. It makes me super emotional even talking about the things that the Lord has connected us and has allowed us to do with you guys. Just in the weekly collections and donations that we get here, we're able to pass those through to Grace, and then it goes right back into our community, to people who some attend church here, some attend church there, other places, but they're all able to receive the nutrition that they need. We always ask for items that if I would feed it to my family, that's the items that we want to collect to feed it to someone else's family. So being able to do that, it's just been really awesome to see how our church attenders are being more selective about the things that they purchase and more selective about the things that that they want to give to us, and not just giving us the expired cans and the things like that. So giving first fruits, it's just been really cool. We have lots of events that go on around here. And then when we're through with the events, we always have just an abundance of food left over. And in the way that Grace has been able to utilize that and to pour that back into the community so that they're getting something that they wouldn't otherwise get, and something it just is extra special. I know we had some ham left after Christmas, and one of your attenders made soup out of the ham for people to come by and get it. And it's just that we don't let anything go to waste. And in partnering with you guys, I think we've been able to really pour into the community more of what they need, but we don't just hand them a bag of food or hand them a canned good. They receive the love of the Lord in ways that it is just, I get to just watch the things happen. And it's just so beautiful to see the love poured out on each person that comes through Grace. It doesn't matter what they look like, doesn't matter where they come from. They are all seen through the eyes of the Lord. And that is why we love to partner with Grace.
Mindy, can you tell us a little bit about the Compassion Weekends and how it is that you came to choose to come alongside Grace with your sweat?
With our sweat. We do Compassion Weekends usually twice a year. And that's where we call our entire church out into the community to serve. We had another organization actually let us know, a homeless organization locally, let us know about Grace and about the things that go on over there. And we were invited to participate. And then in doing so, Ed, you've been so kind to change your distribution day to the Saturday to fit the needs to have our volunteers go out in the community to be able to serve so that they can experience firsthand what it is and what goes on a weekly basis. And in doing that, we have people that on their own have chosen to go to Grace and to serve and to just be the hands and feet of Jesus out in the community. It's just been so cool.
So I think the last time we had nearly 50 people from your church come.
Yeah.
And box up the food and put it in people's trunks. Is that about right?
That's about right. Yeah. Between the 7 a.m. serve and then the people who got to go actually to bring the homebound boxes, they loved it. They thought that was just so awesome to be able to be with the people, to be able to help them select their food and to bring their food to where it needed to be for those that couldn't carry the food back themselves. That was just another really sweet and intimate way to serve. Mm-hmm. And then having you guys come back here for lunch, we were just one giant body together, not any particular denomination, but just people who love people and just wanting to serve the Lord. Just really, and it blesses me every single day to be able to serve with you guys.
Did you hear about the punting that we did at the end of that distribution where we had a bunch of boxes left over to give away?
I knew that you took some away on a trailer.
Well, we had quite a few of your folks that were still hanging around here just helping to clean up, and we had about 30 boxes left over along with 30 gallons of milk. So we actually borrowed the Alvin Manville Community Food Pantry's box truck, loaded them all up, and all of your people followed us over to a mobile trailer park, and they all got to put a box on everybody's doorstep, knock on the door, and say surprise. And I think it's your new youth minister.
Justin.
Justin, he was just blown away by that.
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah.
And what I also will add, the great blessing of partnering with the Harbor is after every Compassion Weekend, they have a huge, huge distribution of canned foods that people have brought to the church. And we get to partake of that, and we get to receive those. And let me just say, it often takes 2 entire truck beds to fill, to bring to Grace all of the goodness that was donated by the Harbor Church. We are so grateful, Mindy, for your partnership and for the way you love and for how your people just are so extravagant in their giving. Thank you.
Oh, yes.
So Leila Hoffman, hi. She
Hello.
is our Catholic representative from the Catholic Daughters of America. Leila, why don't you tell us how you came to partner with Grace? Such a cool story.
Okay, so, well, first, I'm a mom of 6. I was a youth minister for probably 15 years. And one of the things that I always said is, if you cook it, they will come. And so, cooking for a large family, but cooking for all the youth group. So how did I get started? So one of our members asked us to participate in the backpack event. I really had never heard about the Episcopal Grace Pantry. And so I said, okay, well, I brought some items. And then I somehow I found out about the refrigerator that you had. And so I said, well, let me see if this is something that God is calling me to do. So I really prayed about it. I said, well, Lord, send me a sign. And so I said, well, I'm going to cook some beans and rice. So I said, so I cooked some beans and rice. My husband was like, well, what are you doing? I said, well, I heard about this Grace Pantry. And so I'm going to see if this is something that God's calling us to do. And so he said, okay, well, he was at work. And so I cooked the beans and rice, and, I know you can't, this is not a guessing game, but can you imagine how many bowls that I filled from the panel? Just a big guess, but I know that Mother
30.
Susan. So I actually was able to have 33 bowls. 33. And the significance of that is when that was the age that our Lord died. And so I called my husband and I was like, well, I think that we have the answer to being a part of this ministry. And so I told him the story, and he was like, oh, you better get to cooking. And so I think that Proverbs 19:17, it says, whoever is generous to the poor lends to the Lord, and he will repay him for his deeds. So it's not really about being repaid financially, but it is being repaid spiritually. And I think that since we have participated in this ministry, it has just been the graces that we've received for our family, but for our Catholic daughters. And, I really am like, when I present something to the Catholic daughters, I'm the vice regent at this moment. And so, a lot of times they're like, oh my gosh, what does she want to do us to do now? Because I'm like so super excited. But so I said, and I told them the story of the 33 bowls. And so that is really how it started in April. We really didn't have a goal. We started out around 200 from April to December, we did about 280 bowls, which was about 200.
A month.
Yes, a month, 2,088 from April to December of last year. Well, so far from January to April, today, we've done 33,301 meals, home cooked meals, and we have increased our membership of ladies cooking to 24. And I know that we had Ed come last month to our meeting, or this past month, and he brought some food for the ladies to cook. And so our membership, not membership, but our ladies who will be cooking, I know will continue to increase. And really, we haven't even broadcasted it to our community. Our priest knows about it, but I am putting it in the bulletin this week. Now, our Knights of Columbus have partnered with us when they had their fish fries. They just call me and I go get the food, and then I put it in the boxes. And my two daughters, they're also teachers at Alvin High School, and they have actually reached out to the different organizations that are having end of the year banquets. And we were recently gifted some food from the Honor Society banquet, and I think we made probably 60 some meals from that as well. And we just had a bunco with just 100 ladies, and I think, Ed, we were able, now some of the food that we collected at the bunco, we distributed to the ladies that were cooking, and then we were able to gift to y'all today at least 400 items.
400 non-perishable goods. Yeah, it was great.
Yes. So, it is a blessing, to our ladies and those who participate, and we are just truly blessed. And we are going to be putting it in our bulletin of, what we're doing, so that other people who want to get involved can do that. But I think that you said a good thing last at the meeting, and you said, some of these people have never seen a meal like this, and how it's presented is if you are feeding your family, and I think that goes to like the scripture verse is like, we are the hands and feet of Jesus, and these people are representatives of our Lord. And so, we want it to be more than and that's one thing that my husband always says, we're not going to feed it to them if we're not going to eat it ourselves. So whatever you make, you need to, make as if you're going to feed me. And so I think that that's really how our ladies look at it. We're feeding each other, and it doesn't mean that we have to be, somebody said, well, why don't we do it at our own church? And then we said, no, it's already established. It's something that we can go hand in hand with, another community who already are doing such a great job. And so I think that that's really a blessing to both of us, to all of us in general, is that we're working hand in hand against boundaries, right? Because we're all different faiths, but we're working together to the hands and feet of the Lord. So that's really how we got started, and we're super blessed to be a part of it.
Leila, thank you. Thank you so much. And one of the things that I would just like to stress with the Catholic Daughters is that they wanted to start their own blessing refrigerator and blessing box, but then they found out about Grace. They came and they visited and they saw what we were doing. So instead of duplicating the same thing just a few miles down the road, they joined forces. And so that has been powerful, connecting rather than competing.
Right.
And I can't tell you how delightful it is to see all of the Catholic Daughters come in all throughout the day delivering these beautifully prepared meals, which then we are able to give out to our unhoused population. And I will say I had a conversation with one man last week, Wesley, and he said, I can't tell you how much these home-cooked meals mean to me. He said, before this, I was eating green beans out of a can cold. And now I have a home-cooked meal that I can warm up in a microwave that's open all the time. So I would just say, Leela, your partnership with the Catholic Daughters has taken this ministry in a direction we never dreamed it would, but it's been very, very powerful for those who actually receive these beautifully cooked food meals. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I will share that I was dropping off some meals one night and a veteran came and he said the same thing, similar. He told me that he was on a fixed income. He made it like $1,100 a month and he had $100 left over after he paid all his bills. And he said he would not eat if it wouldn't be for these meals. And, that's just one story of the many that all the other ladies have shared. And so it's just a catalyst to continue to, and just be prepared, because once we put it in our bulletin and they see the beauty that it's, that is being, so many people are being fed, and your numbers of 51.7% of the children. Well, my daughter said at the high school that, those numbers are so much bigger because a lot of those people are not even reporting because, they may be immigrants. And so there is a great need in Alvin, and you are the catalyst for making and for helping that need be met. So we're just truly grateful to be a part of this ministry.
Well, it's not us, it's all of us here that's represented today, and all the others that come alongside us. So first of all, I want to say thank you to everybody who has joined us for this webinar today. We see a lot of names that we see a few names that we recognize, and then we see some people that we're like, oh, we've been emulating what they do, and so on and so forth. So David Peters, hello. He was an early helper with our online church efforts. But we're going to go through some questions now. We probably won't be able to hit everything. You are asking a lot of questions. But the first one is, what is a blessing box? So in the video that you watched, and in the PowerPoint presentation, you saw the little house-looking structure that had 2 red doors on the front of it. Basically, here in Alvin, we have our blessing box, but there's about 6 others throughout town. And sometimes when we're overblessed, some of our volunteers will go and deliver to those. But basically, it's just a small outdoor pantry with doors open, basically open air, essentially. And they're good for non-perishable food items. And if you go online and Google blessing box, you can probably find plans on how to build one.
The key to a blessing box, what we have found, is to keep it stocked. And that is where the power of the small church comes to life, because you have to enlist people. You have to invite people in to do this work. Ed and I could spend all day long refilling and filling the blessing refrigerator and the blessing box. But instead, we allow the people of grace and community members to do that work instead, because they are blessed as well. Every single time somebody comes and fills the blessing box, they encounter a neighbor, they encounter somebody who needs food, and meaningful interactions happen. We see that time and time again, and it allows a church campus to be friendly and approachable.
And I see there's a lot of interest in that, in the community fridge, the blessing refrigerator.
Tell the story of the refrigerator.
Yeah, so the refrigerator, someone came along and said, I've got this refrigerator in my garage. Would you like it? And I was, Mother Suzanne was on vacation. And so I made an executive decision. Yeah, we'll take the refrigerator. And she comes back from vacation. There's a refrigerator sitting outside the office. She's like, what is that? I said, well, it's full of food. But what I'll tell you about the blessing boxes and the blessing refrigerators is an idea that you like. You really have to make sure that before you commit to doing that, that you're also committed to the infrastructure behind it to keep it filled, because it really sends the wrong message if people are constantly walking up to it and finding it empty. And the other wrong message is that we are a church that should believe in blessing with extravagance. Okay, so don't make it a place where people can clean out their pantries and put all their expired foods in, or they have some leftovers from dinner and they put it in a, in a plastic container and just, put it out there for people. And it needs to look right. Let's see what else. How do you prevent your fridge and microwaves from being vandalized? Well, that's an interesting question that
Great
you asked.
question.
People asked us the same question. It's never been vandalized. The refrigerator's been there since July. When did you go on that vacation?
2019.
July of 2019. It's never been vandalized. The microwaves have never been vandalized. Why is that? Because the people who rely on it. They'd rather have the food that comes out of it than a 30-year-old refrigerator. And if you look at that video and you look at the beautiful structure, the hospitality that's behind the structure that they're in, it just doesn't happen. I don't know, it could elsewhere.
So one of the things we found about our microwave, and when the origin of our microwave was, I was so tired of watching our unhoused population take food out of the refrigerator, whether it be soup or macaroni and cheese, and eat it cold. So we had this crazy idea, well, what if we just attached microwaves to our blessing refrigerator? That way our unhoused folks could go directly from the refrigerator to the microwave and have a warm meal. Here in Alvin, our unhoused population are not allowed to go to any of the convenience stores to warm their food up. So I knew in my heart nothing would happen to our microwaves, because this is the only place these folks can come and have a hot meal. And because of that, we put a covering over it as well as a light. So anytime, day or night, our unhoused folks can come and warm their food up. It's an extension of hospitality. It's offering the love of Christ in a very tangible way.
And there's an important part of this story.
Yes.
You and I are having this conversation about putting microwaves out. So I go over to the harbor to see Mindy, who had a load of food
Right.
pick up, and I was like, "Hey, Mindy, we've got this crazy idea to put some microwaves outside." That afternoon, I think, was it that afternoon, Mindy? Mindy calls me and said, "Hey, I've got your 2 microwaves." So that was pretty unbelievable. And in no time at all, we had a carpenter that built a little housing structure for it, and we had them up in there, and nobody's stolen them yet.
Nobody, not one person.
Here's I can't read who this is from, but it says, "We have a blessing box. We offer a free meal last Saturday of the month. We sponsor children events. We set up a booth at the county fair. But how can we reach the community to come in for worship?" So
sorry, go ahead.
Okay. So when we talk about how we've had people join, become members of Grace, for lack of a better way of saying it, what we found is that we've got people that sit in the pews on Sundays who at one point were in the line to receive food. Then they saw the love that was taking place out on the street when they were being received, the hospitality, not of us, but of all of our volunteers, because a third of the people that are working on any Thursday are from Grace. The rest of them are from other churches or no churches at all. And so next thing you know, they say, "Hey, how can I volunteer?" And our response is always, "Well, just show up. Just show up." And so then they show up and they start volunteering to do this work. And next thing you know, they say, "Well, do you need any help on any other day?" And we're like, "Yeah, we need help every day." And so it's this progression. There's never really an ask. We never say, "Why don't you come to church on Sunday?" They just show up.
They do. They do. And that's the thing I want to say for all of you guys who are priests. One of the things, if you endeavor to do this kind of ministry with your community, you have to be present. You have to be out there picking up boxes, filling boxes. You have to have an active role in the ministry that you want to do. And that's the thing, they become familiar, these folks who oftentimes have never stepped foot in a church before. They see my face, they see Ed's face, and it really happens. Like there's this natural progression. They start with church on the streets. We do it every Thursday before a mobile food pantry. It's this gentle entry into the love of God by scripture, song, and a blessing. And then before you know it, they start having the courage to say, when does church meet? Or they'll ask a question about faith. but there never is a direct ask at the mobile food pantry of saying, please come to church on Sunday at 9. We just don't do that. People just come.
Okay, kudos to Grace, another Grace Church in Hartford, Connecticut. They have an ASA, or average Sunday attendance, around 30 to 40, and they have a food pantry. And it sounds like a lot of the things, a place at Grace provides groceries, meat. This sounds like, you know, we took a page right out of your playbook, because they partner with 2 nearby wealthy Episcopal congregations for volunteers, community residents, so on and so forth. So kudos to you guys. Thank you very much for sharing that information. Jim Morganson, we have found value in finding gaps that a small congregation, that's exactly what we're talking about.
Absolutely, Jim.
For example,
Yes.
we raise money to buy bus tokens for the social workers in our community. So you guys are doing exactly, finding gaps, exactly.
And that's the thing. When you endeavor to listen to your community, you may think that you are going to do this kind of ministry, but the courage comes when you actually listen to your community and you respond to what they are saying. So we had a blessing box that was always empty, and that simply told us our neighbors are hungry. Let's do something about it. As a small church, you have the power to just start. Just start. Be courageous and brave and just do something.
So, Catherine Barr, you said ideas to reach out to the people who live close by when the neighbors are fairly affluent. We know that just because someone has food on the table doesn't mean that that person isn't hurting or in need of church. Well, you know, the message here shouldn't really be received as the answer to the power of the small church is food. The answer to the power of the small church is listening to the community. And I would encourage you, if you haven't thought about it already, is to look into holy currencies, and that can lead you to some listening exercises in your community, which in turn might pinpoint something besides food that can help you connect and do mighty work in your community. I hope that kind of gives you an idea.
And one of the things that we also want to stress is that this work is only possible because we have partnered with other churches and community organizations. This would be really, really hard if we didn't have Mindy at the harbor and her crew. It would be really hard if Leela and her cooking team were not part of what we do. I hope that they feel they have entered into something much bigger than they originally thought, because Ed and I, we say that all the time. This has turned into something so much bigger. It's snowballed into something so much bigger because we kept saying yes. As a door would open, we would walk through it. As a community partner came to us, instead of saying no, we said, let's explore that. Let's do it. Let's see if it'll work. We have changed the culture of Grace. Before, it was a church that was told no all the time. I discerned that very quickly upon my arrival, and I said, we are going to do the exact opposite. We are going to be a church that says yes.
Okay, Barb Zumwald, I hope I didn't kill your name. How can you recruit more volunteers? Our congregation is 18 to 20 in attendance and extremely elderly. Well, when we first set out to do the mobile food pantry, we weren't really setting out to do, you know, we were really just looking for a solution to not having enough food on hand. We didn't necessarily intend to like create what it has become. So we actually went to another community organization that was interested in entering into an experiment of their own, which was to start doing mobile food pantries around our community. And we said, well, why don't you send one our way? And so eventually it did come. But what I would say is that one's congregation doesn't necessarily need to be the initiator of a ministry, but perhaps instead of trying to recruit more volunteers, you take the folks that you have and you find something in your community that's suited to what they're able to do. For instance, we have here in Alvin another food pantry, the Alvin Manville Community Food Pantry. And you can go there on Tuesdays and you can find a whole host of other volunteers that are there that show up. One of our former parishioners, who was 92 until she broke her hip, was there every single week volunteering to help put together their boxes. And the great thing about their food pantry is that it's air conditioned. So it might be an opportunity for your congregation to be seen together in the community, and not necessarily, and just play with it and see how it evolves. Does the local health department have anything to say about the use of your refrigerator or microwave? Well, I think they probably just turned a blind eye. I'll tell you, that refrigerator, as you saw, is open 60 to 80 times a day. I can put 5 gallons of milk out and it'll be gone in 15 minutes. Nothing stays in there long enough. They do come inside and see all of our other 20 refrigerators, and they do check that the temperatures on those are being checked. But seriously, what goes in that refrigerator doesn't last more than 30 minutes. And if your refrigerator at home was opened 100 times a day, it probably wouldn't be at the right temperature. But the health department here in our little population of 25,000 hasn't made an issue of it. I think they just realize that it's a benefit to folks. For those who have to leave us early,
The things that I would like to say, we purposefully put our blessing box, our blessing fridge, and our warming station outside of our offices so that we are able to see the people who come by every single day for help. So what this is allowed for is this relational evangelism that happens all day long. We have the same folks who come by, we have new folks who come by, but every single opportunity is an opportunity to get to know our neighbors. I think it's so easy to kind of stay in our safe spaces within the walls of the church. And what I have learned is that, mission is outside the walls of the church. You have to go where the people are, because the expectation of people just walking in just isn't reality for most churches these days.
Okay. Did I miss any questions, folks? Thank you all for all of your great comments.
And I think our time is just about over. We're at the 1 minute mark before 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock, wherever you are at. Listen, if you would like to get in touch with us, one of the things that Ed and I are really passionate about is this ministry, but also Grace is a learning lab. That's the way we see our campus. Like I said before, ministry here is done by way of holy experiments. We try things. If they don't work, it's okay. We kind of get back and try something else. There's never a wrong thing per se in regards to ministry. There's just better ways or different ways of doing things. Not really wrong.
Okay, I have I can't somebody at first of all, Stephanie Green asked about thoughts on expanding toiletries and household products and so on and so forth. Okay, let me tell you that we mentioned our senior homebound deliveries. We do this every Thursday, and we have a grant from the Episcopal Seniors Foundation, as well as some United Way money and some other funding that we get. And we actually do send those toiletries and household products to those folks in their box with their food every week. We have about 85 of those. We also have, as I mentioned, the HUD Memorial Gardens low-income housing apartments, where we've recently started what we call a mini pantry. Rather than making deliveries to them, we set up a mini pantry, and every other week we do take household products along with the food items that we take. And then somebody else said, there's one more question if you want to address it. And I don't know, do you
ever deal
There's
with
somebody by the name of Curtis Widener who says, do you ever deal with angry individuals, and how do you handle those individuals? Well, Jesus had a little moment in the temple And so, you know, and we're all human too. So we take those on a case by case. Yes, there are some angry individuals, and that's just it. You know, I can't give you any tips on how to handle those folks.
Well, I will say on the whole, the one I think expression is always of gratitude. That is how most people respond to this work. It's thank you. It's thank you for seeing us. I know for our unhoused folks, they routinely tell us that we are the church that sees them and tries to help them. And again, with our partners, Leela, Mindy, Susie, we're able to do this and to do it well and extravagantly.
Okay. So I don't think we were able to answer all the questions that were out there, but Peggy, I think this is recorded, and I think if you want the chats, Peggy, are you able to come back in and give us?
Sure. Hi.
If people want to,
yeah.
want to download the chats, how do they do that?
So the video will be sent out, and I'll work on, when you go to the website where the video is, sometimes we can have the option to do files. So if you want to send us the PowerPoint, and we can try to do add the chat in there.
Okay, we'll send, so if everybody heard that, we're going to send the link to the video, which was done graciously paid for by the Episcopal Health Foundation. We'll send the link to that, and we will also send her the PowerPoint that you saw. And then she's going to figure out how to download the chat so that everybody can go back and go through those questions.
And if you would like to be in touch with us, we have a website and our contact information is there. And you can also come and visit us in Alvin, Texas, if you want. We'd love to have you.
gracechurchalvin.org. Yeah. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Mindy. Thank you, Susie. Thank you, Leela.
So in one last way, let me bless you all as we say goodbye. Dear people of God, may the Lord bless you and may he keep you and may he cause his gracious face to shine upon you and those whom you love. May you be courageous and brave in your ministry. May you be the hands and feet of Christ and may you open your eyes to see those who are not seeing. In the name of the one God, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen.